What's up, YouTube? Today we're going to be talking about how to tell who's natty and who's not. Oh, wait, sorry, I got a new webcam. I gotta adjust it. Let me try to get the height correct. There we go. Okay, yeah. So today we're going to be talking about how to tell whether someone's natural or not. And obviously, Revival Fitness put out a video on this where he basically accused Joffrey Schofield of being a fake natty again. I've already addressed those claims before because he's been making them for a while. I'm not going to retread that ground. I've already mugged the kid, so I'm not going to do that either if you played out at this point. Instead, I'm going to make the case that we've kind of failed the fitness industry as more experienced natural lifters by not wanting to touch this topic. A lot of us have kind of had, some principles on this. Natty or nots are associated with people like Greg Doucette, people like Jason Blaha, so it's kind of a taboo. We shouldn't talk about this. Well, what do? People, especially young people, are going to be very interested in that information. So what are they going to do? They're going to seek that information out for themselves, try to figure it out for themselves, and try to put that information out for themselves. If people who know what they're talking about, experienced natural lifters, are not making those videos, then it's going to be inexperienced people who are making those videos, or scumbags. Obviously, there are a lot of scumbags who do natty or nots, but it's going to fall to inexperienced people like Revival to try to fill that void if we don't do it. So instead of just mogging him and responding point by point to him, what I'm going to do is just explain how I try to determine who is natural and not on social media, and try to just present a framework by which younger lifters can navigate social media, figure out who they should place in what camp, but who they should kind of trust a little bit more, who they should trust a little bit less, and how to figure that out. And I think by the end of this video, if you're a younger lifter trying to figure that stuff out, you'll have a little bit better understanding of what an experienced natural does look for, trying to determine who's who, but also just how to use that information in a way that is most beneficial to you getting the best information possible from people, regardless of their status, right? Now, before I get into it, please remember to do all the YouTube stuff, the bell, the subscription, the likes, comments obviously are appreciated. And if you would like to support this channel, I would obviously appreciate it if you buy my book, but I do think it'll be valuable to you. All right, let's get into it. All right, so how do we know if someone's natural or not on social media? Well, before we answer that, let's get into why we want to know. It's not about having a realistic expectation for ourselves because you're never going to look like anybody else anyway. You're going to look like you. You're going to have your bone structure, your particular look. You're not going to look like anybody else, natural, enhanced, or otherwise, right? So that's kind of out. And the other thing is, it's not really about morality, getting justice, or whatever. Because I mean, I guess I'm not opposed to morality, obviously, but at the end of the day, that doesn't do much for us, right? You don't benefit if someone gets called out or if they don't get called out, right? What we benefit from is good information. And that's why it's important to know whether somebody's natural or enhanced, because we know whether their advice and their experiences are more or less relevant to us, which is not in any way to say that enhanced guys can't give good information to naturals. They absolutely can. But generally speaking, naturals are going to have more experience that's more applicable to other naturals and vice versa, right? So even if we're getting advice from both sources, which in a lot of cases we should, it's just good to know which category to file that person under, right? So that's the reason why we want to know. It's practical. It's not about judging this person. This is a bad person. This is a good person, etc. All right, that's why we want to know. Okay, so now that I've done that, let me tell you a couple things that I don't care as much about that are often emphasized in natty or nots. I don't care that much about FFMI. If somebody's a little bit over, that doesn't necessarily mean they're enhanced because when the FFMI scale was invented, they correctly looked at a lot of the top drug-free champions before steroids were accessible to decide what's reasonable. But the problem with that is they didn't look at some of the biggest mass monsters of that era, like Herman Corner. So we do know that some people that definitely got way above what is considered probably enhanced on that scale did exist. So that's not super accurate, and I think some people today could very easily exceed that. Some people just have sturdier skeletons, right? Some people are just built a little bit different. And that's fine. In a lot of cases, these people aren't necessarily even the ones who look the most saucy. They're just built to be big, and that's fine, And I don't think the scale fully appreciates that, right? Um, the other thing I'm definitely not looking for is like the better you look, the more enhanced you are. That's nonsense, right? You have plenty of people that look fantastic that are natural, and plenty of people that look terrible that are enhanced. I saw this gentleman the other day on Instagram. He looked kind of skinny, but he obviously had the enhanced skin look, had all the acne and the orangish red, like the veins and just like dryness, but like his muscles are small. I commented on their enhanced skin natty muscles and got a bunch of likes, and that was kind of funny. But you see that. You see people who look terrible, and you see people who look great, like, Hersoviak, Natty. I mean, how fantastic aesthetic physique, right? Liver King, kind of big in certain areas, but not a great looking physique. Not obviously, red skin. Now then we got the emails and all, so it's not better equals um, enhanced and worse equals natty, right? And that strength falls into that category too. It doesn't. The stronger you are, that doesn't necessarily mean you're more likely to be enhanced. In some cases, it can mean the opposite, right? So those are some things that I don't look for that often get brought up in the conventional natty or not. So let's get into what I do look for. The number one thing, I mean, if we're asking if someone's a fake natty, what are we asking? We're asking if they're lying, you know? And so often this gets treated as purely a physical assessment. We're just looking at the person, look at their skin, look at their muscles, look at their size, look at their weight, look at their lips, and we just, with our eyes, make a judgment about whether they're natural. But the reality is it's a character assessment, right? So the most relevant, the most specifically relevant information that we're going to get about whether this person is probably lying to us or not is other evidence that we have of their character, right? So, this can work in both a positive and a negative direction. So if we see evidence the person has poor character, well, they could very well be lying about steroids too. And I think it's safe to just go ahead and assume that if someone's lying to you about one thing, they're probably lying to you about everything, right? Like when I found out that Athlean X was on gear, it's like, or sorry, that he used fake weights is like, okay, like fake weights is, some people will simp for fake natty. Some people will say, hey, I understand why they're doing it. They're trying to make money, whatever. Like some people do that. I don't do that, but some people will, right? Nobody simps for fake plates. I mean, everybody hates you if you use fake plates. That's like, it's over. So if someone's going to, violate a bigger taboo like fake plates, why even ask the question? They're the fake natty, right? I don't believe anything you say, Same thing with Andy Elliott, right? Why don't I believe that he's natural? Why do I think he's a fake natty? Because, is it because he looks too impressive? No, he doesn't look that impressive. But this is a guy who yells at people on Instagram about like making money and stuff, right? Um, and he's denied the steroid thing, right? But anyway, why is he a fake natty? Well, he's only out of prison because he ratted on his boys in a big fraud case. He had a big fraud case. He made a deal, and now he's out of prison. Okay, well, he committed fraud, and the only reason he's free is because he, snitched on his boys. So, do you believe anything he says? No, he's fake natty, right? And kind of works the other way too. When we see evidence that someone has good character, maybe you disagree on what's good character and what's not, as you'll see in this example that I'm going to have here in a second. But if you see that someone's the type that's like really thinking about things and is very concerned about how they do things, not just what results they get, I think that's a good indicator of someone's character. A great example here is natural hypertrophy. He put up that video like just really getting in depth about what he thought was an ethical and unethical way to make money, like where his principles are coming from and all that. And I thought he got kind of crazy with like some of the stuff that he wasn't willing to do. It's like, bro, why not? Like that's not even unethical. Like you're like putting up a bunch of like really big obstacles to yourself making money in this field. You're trying to support your family off doing something cool, like making good content for folks. You just put a bunch of barriers in front of yourself and not letting yourself do this, not letting yourself do that. The only thing you're allowed to do is coffee. I didn't really agree with it, but it does show that he cares about how he gets a certain result. He's not willing to just do whatever it takes to get results. He like very, it's very important to him, like how he does things, right? He could be making much more money by doing X, Y, and Z, and he's not willing to do that. So clearly, this is somebody who cares about the process, not necessarily the results. Who knows? He could be a fake natty too. Everyone could, but I don't believe it because we're seeing evidence of that. Another good example, Joffrey Schofield. This is another good reason among many to believe that he's natural. He for a long time had his YouTube monetization off. He's not taking every opportunity to make money. He's been pretty picky with what he endorses as far as you know sponsors for videos. He's pretty much just making money off his book, which is a very ethical way to make money. I think this is the most ethical way to make money. Everyone should make money by selling books. I think this is, the most noble way to make money. Ebooks. Um, I may be a little bit biased there, but you get what I mean. Like the guy's had a lot of opportunities to make money, like tons of opportunities to sell supplements, etc. And I'm not saying it's always wrong to sell supplements. I'm not. I'm agnostic here on like what is and isn't good. I'm not trying to make a case about what is and isn't moral. But when you see that someone is very picky about what they're willing to do to make money, that gives you a good indicator that they probably you know care about the how more so than the results, right? You could have someone who's just playing, you know, just doing that to make it look like, they care. Who knows? We don't know everything, but it's a good indicator. And there's a lot of skin in the game. Like when someone's passing up significant sums of money, that's hard to do without some actual commitment. You have to be really committed to the, to the lie if you're just faking all that, right? So I think that just you guys get it, like evidence that we have of people's character, right? And some people we don't have that evidence. They don't have much track record online. We don't really know much about them. So then we can't use that. Another kind of related thing is community. Um, I am a little bit more wary of lone wolves. It's been my experience that most people who are passionate about natural bodybuilding or natural lifting, etc., like like the company of others who are into that. They want to talk to people, they want to go on, podcasts, collab, just DM people, just chat about it. They like a little bit of community element because we share a passion, right? That's something that they're genuinely passionate about, genuinely like talking about. So you'll typically find these people kind of cluster together, right? And then you see some people who are out there just kind of being lone wolves. They don't want to interact with anyone. They don't want to seek out anyone else who is in the natural community on social media. Like it's social media, but you're not trying to be social, right? So what's up with that, right? Like it's these lone wolves, and I kind of think with some of these people, they just kind of want to be at the top of their soapbox, and they just transmit down to their audience, and they don't necessarily want any other creators interfering with that, so that they can just be the only resource that their audience is getting. And that to me is more of a red flag because they people and I'm in a bunch of spaces, not just natural bodybuilding, all sorts of spaces, mobility, all sorts of stuff. And the common thread is like people who are confident in what they do like to seek out other sources of information. They like to seek out other creators and have discussions and just bounce things off. We're all exploring this together. And people that tend to be more less reputable, they tend to not want any other perspectives other than theirs getting to their audience because they're not confident. They're not they're not confident that they will do well in the free marketplace of ideas. So to me, it's kind of a red flag when someone doesn't hang out with anyone, when they just do their own thing. You know, um, if you really don't think there's anybody good out there worth learning from, why are you on here other than just to sell? And that in conjunction with some of the other things we'll see on the list, it doesn't necessarily mean you can't conclusively say anything from that, but that is something I look for. The people that I believe is natural, tend to seek out other people that I believe are natural, right? Um, so that kind of summarizes character. Now let's get into the physicality. Number one thing I look for, it's not FFMI, it's not how good someone looks. The number one thing I look for is training. Okay? Anyone who is impressive naturally has good training. I don't care. Like no one is out there doing really cookie cutter, you know, workouts they got out of a magazine, workouts that everybody else is doing and got impressive physique naturally. You know, every single person that has gotten an impressive physique naturally is going to have certain traits in their training. They're going to be strong. Now, does that mean they're going to be good at all the compounds? Not necessarily. You look at Steve Reeves back in the day, for example. I don't know how big his back squat or deadlift was because he intentionally was trying not to develop his traps. He was intentionally trying not to develop his glutes. So I don't know how much he ever focused on those. He had, he was very specific in what he wanted. But then with his Reeves deadlift, which he believed would help widen his shoulders out, make him look like this. Because I guess when you do this, you look like you have wider shoulders, especially if you go down low. Anyway, he was gripping the rims of the plates 400 pounds. That's crazy, right? That's strength. And if you look at probably his best body part, his arms. Well, I mean, his arms, he was doing incline curls with, I believe the 80s or not 70s, 80s or 90s, something ridiculous like that. And obviously he had big arms. And guess, do we have anybody else that we can think of like that today? Oh, you know what? We do. We have Joffrey Schofield. He's got ridiculous arms and he does ridiculous weights on the inclines. I have a much better reputation generally for strength than he does. But if you look at my arms, they're not as big. And this, the bicep is a result of like, I think my max on incline curls is like 45s for like three maybe. And, he's doing the 60s for, medium to high reps, right? So like, well, I'm generally probably much stronger than he is in a lot of other areas. Um, on that area that he's getting his fake natty accusations from, he's extremely strong, right? Nobody's looking at his pecs necessarily and saying, "Oh, this guy's a fake natty because his pecs are too good." That's not. I think that's not what's happening at all. No, I mean I'm not bashing him, but it's like his pec, like people are with you. So you bring up his bench press, it doesn't necessarily mean that much because like his pecs aren't what's getting the fake natty accusations. You look at me in contrast, like, do I have the best arms? No, but I also don't have the best arm isolations. You look at my traps, my spinal erectors, my hamstrings, big weights or maybe medium weights are being lifted in a really difficult way, or in the case of traps, just big weights going up. And that's going to be the case with any natural with a standout body part. They're doing some kind of impressive exercise with demonstrating a lot of strength, right? But we're not just talking about top end strength. There's also going to be a lot of sophistication. I've never heard. I mean, some people will just get genetically lucky. A certain body part responds well. And we even say, I don't even want to talk about genetics. Some people will just get some body parts easily, but every good natural is going to be very experienced in bodybuilding. They're going to have a lot to tell you about how they developed all their areas. They're going to have a whole story. They're not going to they're not going to say, oh, yeah, it's just consistency and diet. Like every elite natural is going to have like in-depth stuff they can tell you about training, bodybuilding. It's not going to be, cookie cutter. There's going to be a ton of insight. Like you just don't get to that level, no matter how good your genetics are or whatever, without just, really good insight into bodybuilding training, just getting into advanced stuff, right? It doesn't happen. No one is going to get universally big off the basics. You may have some standout body parts that work well off the basics, but any advanced natural bodybuilder is going to have advanced training. Find me an exception, right? Um, and on that note, typically they're going to display good range of motion. I mean, the silver era guys all had wonderful range of motion. They were all doing all sorts of hybrid mobility bodybuilding. The Jefferson curl was popular in the silver era. A lot of those guys were doing Jefferson curls, stuff like that. They were doing pullovers. They were doing a ton of, high mobility type exercises. And as a result, they expressed good range of motion. They could do behind the neck presses. They could do behind the neck pull-ups and all that good stuff. So I'm not saying every elite natural has to be like a mobility expert, but typically they're going to be training with good range of motion enough to ensure and enough balance to ensure good joint health because that's kind of the big limiting factor with naturals. It's not your testosterone level so much. It's having good healthy joints so that you don't get injured and you can keep training. I mean, if you're enhanced, you can kind of fudge the numbers a little bit. You mess up your body, you can just push the doses and get past it a little bit. Just push the doses and eat more food, and hopefully it grows anyway, even though you can't really train it effectively. But when you're natural, like everything that you want to train has to be up and running effectively. So mobility, I think, alongside top end strength and just bodybuilding sophistication is a really good indicator that even if this guy looks really good, his training is matching his physique. Like you may be skeptical, but then his training is that good. Okay, well, he's training the way that I would expect someone who looks really good to train. So, maybe that's evidence in his favor. And if someone trains that way, if someone trains really well, man, I'm willing to be very optimistic about a lot, because typically that's not what we see. When we see a lot of these, when we see enhanced bodybuilders, their training is not that good. Or I'm not saying it's bad. It does what they want, but it's not that sophisticated. It's very simplistic. A lot of middle range stuff, um, a lot of machines, not a lot of sophistication there. Um, and typically, when you see people who are kind of the classic fake natties, they typically train exactly like the enhanced guys. It's very basic stuff. Looks like it came out of a men's health magazine. And, their answers to how they got that way is just, consistency and diet, right? So that's, if someone looks really good, like, ugh, I'm having a hard time believing it, but his training matches, it's like, oh man, this guy is so sophisticated. This guy's so strong. I mean, he's doing all the shit that I should be doing, but I skip. It's like, okay, I'll give you benefit of the doubt. And then on the other hand, if you don't even look that good, but your training is just like, bro, come on, you did not build that physique off that. Like Paul Sklar, I'm I'm confident he's not natural because like he's not. I'm not saying he's too huge or that he's too old, but come on, the guy's showing you like combination like squat curls. He's like squatting while he's lunging. No one has ever built an impressive physique by squatting while lunging. So either these exercises that he's showing you on Instagram, I mean, if he's getting jacked off those, he's taking gear, or he's actually doing real effective training off camera and just showing you that nonsense, in which case he has no integrity, in which case he's on gear. I'm sorry. Like no one builds significant amounts of muscle that way. I'm sorry. You know what I mean? So that's a good indicator for me that someone's, not natural if their workouts are nonsense, right? Okay, what else do I look for? Now I said I don't look at FFMI, but I do kind of look at I look at the gestalt. Like what does the person look like in totality? If they're really huge, okay, but do they kind of look, I hate to say it, natural that way? Do they look like they're supposed to be that big? Because some people just have really big frames and they're going to accommodate more muscle. In contrast, some people may not have a crazy FFMI, but if they have that small frame with tons of muscle popping off, it may still cross that line where it just doesn't look natural. And if some people just look really good, and that's okay. And if their training matches it, that's one thing. But if you have some guy who's just got muscle popping out, he just looks like he was created by a cartoon artist rather than by nature. And also he's doing, the pump and fluff, men's health workout routines, trying to tell you he's natty. Even if he's not necessarily like that huge, like because a lot of the kind of Gymshark look guys are not necessarily super huge. Their FFMI may be perfectly normal, but they look like a cartoon character, and you know their training is like whatever, and they're lean all year round. They're not bulking and cutting or anything. It's like okay, we have and then they're promoting things that may not be ethical, or may just not be that any evidence of principle. When we have all that kind of come together, it creates a profile that can lead you in one direction or the other, right? You have the guy who's just respected by everyone, you know, standout reputation for honesty, strong, knows his stuff when it comes to training, like doesn't skip his mobility work, does all his good stuff. He's, I'll give him a lot more benefit of the doubt. And the thing with that is, if you follow this advice or if you take these guidelines, even if you do end up accidentally thinking that a fake natty is natural and listening to his advice, it's still good advice. Whereas, if someone actually truly is natural and you kind of discard his advice a little bit, well, it, you it doesn't hurt you that much because you're kind of placing people based in a lot of cases on the quality of their training and their advice. So even if there are some exceptions where you got it wrong, it doesn't really hurt you that much, right? But those are the things that I mainly look for. And that I think we can be fairly confident with a lot of people. There are a lot of people just based on their training, based on their physique, just based on their character. And, comparing that with the people that we know for a fact from the, pre-steroid era were natural, we can be pretty confident with a lot of these people. And then there are a lot of people that I am fairly confident that guy's not natural because he does not match in any of those categories the profile of what an advanced natural would look like. I'm very comfortable just putting him off. Okay, he's I think he's probably fake. Um, and then there's a lot of people in the gray area, and I think it's important to have a robust gray area where we just don't call that out. I'm not opposed to natty or nots in principle. I think if someone's making claims and those claims are false, why would it be immoral to call that out? Why would it be unethical? Like what other area of life do we say that it's wrong to call someone out for making false claims? Um, but I do think it's important to have a robust gray area. So I think, yeah, I think we should be we should be upfront about affirming people that we believe. You believe someone's the real deal. I think you should be open about that. And you'll hear me talk about people I believe are the real deal. And there are some people that are obviously across the line. I think we should all be pretty open about who we see are across the line, but I think it's important to have a robust gray area. And these are, in a lot of cases, going to be people who, may look really good, and we shouldn't have that much information. There's some people that just post on Instagram, their physiques look fantastic. They don't post a lot of their training. They don't really interact with anyone. You don't have a whole lot of evidence one way or the other. I mean, take it for what it is. We don't have to have answers to everything. I think that gray area is super important. I definitely don't think all those people in the gray area are on something, but I think, maybe some of them are, but, just don't invest too much. Don't base like everything that you do off something they say, base most of your information off people who are very confident or natural, or people who are still giving you good advice who are not, but we know that and they're open. Obviously disregard most everything that a fake natty says, or anyone who you're pretty confident is a fake natty, and someone in the gray area, let's take it with a grain of salt, but they might still have something good to say. I think if we follow those guidelines, we can actually have a pretty good idea about who is what, but more importantly, we can, minimize our risk from being deceived and maximize our ability to get good information from people who are telling the truth. I think it's important to have that out there, like a good way to just navigate this and, figure out how we put priority on whose information. So this has been my attempt to put that out there for, younger lifters so they don't have to go trying to figure all this stuff out for themselves. So that they can, successfully navigate the social media fitness space and figure out who they're getting information from, you know, and just for their curiosity, because guess what? People are going to want to know this stuff. People are going to want to know this stuff. So, don't make it a taboo. Like, oh, we can't talk about that. And that doesn't mean I'm going to necessarily start making this an Natty or Not channel. I'm not going to be looking up random Zoomers and, oh, this guy has broccoli hair and his name is like whatever. I'm going to call him out. That's not interesting to me, but if some Zoomers want to do that, I guess it's okay. But you guys get where we're coming from. We should be open about this stuff. Those of us who are a little bit more experienced ought to give our insight so nobody else has to just kind of figure it out on the fly. Does that make sense? Hope that was a little bit helpful to you guys. I hope, now whatever. I'm going to cut this off in a second anyway. Maybe I can edit this out. No, I'm not that sophisticated yet. But anyway, yeah, hope this was helpful to you guys, and I hope that answered all the potential questions. But bottom line, just assess people in totality and just try to put them into their correct camp. But don't be too certain about it. Don't bet your life savings on any of this stuff. But I firmly believe that we can be pretty confident about which bucket to put each person in. It's not this like black box where we just cannot look in. There's once when you get statistics, I mean, there can be outliers in any one characteristic, but when you get into multivariate outliers, like you get to a point where the odds of someone being a multivariate outlier, like they're going to respond better to different training while they're also going to be, you know, bigger than everybody else, but they're also going to be redder and more enhanced. Like looking at everybody else. Like, you get into like three standard deviations on like three different characteristics. Like you're getting into some very like improbable shit right there. So we can be pretty confident of who's who. And for those that we can't, we put them in the gray area. There's no problem with that. I don't know. He could be, he might not be, but we can be pretty confident. Especially for us, more experienced guys, we we know what's up more often than not. But that's natural experience, okay? That's not somebody who said they maxed out their natty limits in like 5 years and then they, went on the sauce and oh, I know about lifting. No, you don't. That's natty experience. Anyway, listen to Noble Natties. Don't listen to Greg Doucette or Revival Fitness. All right, that's all. Goodbye.